Welcome to this week's episode of Future Fridays, where we chat about future tech headlines from the week. I'm your host, Wiz, and you can find me on Twitter at WizLikeWizard. Today we have three lovely guests who I'll each have go around and give a short 280 character intro. And we also have Yael on the line, who's a cartoonist, who'll be live doodling with us for fun. And you can find her on Instagram at YaelIsms. So David, we'll start with you. Do you want to go ahead and give a short 280 character intro?
Hey everyone, I'm David. I'm an analyst at Union Square Ventures. I started about 4 months ago, right before quarantine.
Nice. Dhruv, you want to go next?
I am Dhruv. I'm the founder and CEO of Factmata, and our mission is to tackle misinformation using AI.
It's awesome. And last but not least, Taylor.
Awesome. Hey everyone, I'm Taylor, co-founder and CEO of Toucan. We're a way for you to learn a language just as you browse the web. So if you're going down Reddit rabbit holes, binge watching Netflix, reading Wikipedia, we help you with vocabulary acquisition.
I started using Toucan last week. I'm liking it a lot to learn Spanish.
Amazing.
Cool. Before we jump in, all of the headlines that we're going to chat about today come from a newsletter I work on called This Week in Creative Tech. Every week we share about 30 new headlines ranging from sort of like more current technology to, on the other end of the spectrum, totally crazy future stuff, most of which we're going to be chatting about today. Anyone watching can sign up at bit.ly/join Future Fridays. So we're going to kick today off with a game. This game is called Real or Fake, and it's going to be worth 5 points. And there's going to be a really awesome prize at the end for the winner of all the games. So we've got 3 headlines here, 2 of which are real and 1 of which is fake. And the job for you all is to guess which one is fake. So number 1 is this app would call men out in real time when they hog office discussions. Number 2 is the latest modern art installation is inside of Fortnite. And number 3 is Fitbit patent reveals future of implantable fitness trackers. So we'll do rock, paper, scissors, and then you'll just shoot 1, 2, or 3, whichever one you think is the fake one. So hands up when you're ready, and we'll do it together. Fists up. Taylor. Nice.
Okay.
All right. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. So we've got 1. Dhruv, what is that? Wait, turn it.
Sorry.
I just can't see your fingers.
I messed that one up. Can I say what it was?
Sure. Yeah. Which one do you think is the fake one?
It was 1.
Okay. And David, you had number 1 as well. All right. So you are all unfortunately wrong. The fake headline is in fact number 3. Fitbit patent reveals future of implantable trackers. Number 1 is a real thing. It just it records the conversation. It can easily tell gender, male or female, and then it'll just alert if the men are hogging the conversation. So we'll move on to the first headline of the day. This one is, this human skin replacement got experts buzzing. So this is about a company called Elastogen, which was created by researchers out of the University of Sydney. And basically they developed an elastic protein that is based on molecules that are already found in the body called elastin, which is it's what makes up our tissues related to like the intestines, the hearts, the bladder, all the stretchy things in our body. They've basically synthesized this protein and they've turned it into their own product, which they can create things like the skin replacement that we see on screen. One interesting use case for it is as we move more into the world of mechanical implants, you could imagine some of those devices being wrapped in this or in some sort of a coating. It would basically prevent those devices from being rejected by our body as foreign objects. Other uses include things like repairing scars and tissues, or if people have any sort of skin damage, being able to repair skin damage with that. So let me put it out to all of you. Obviously, organ transplants, implantable devices, things like this are already being used to help increase people's lifespans. But what happens when we have the ability to actually regenerate? Many implants, like heart valves, are being replaced today during wear and tear. But is it possible that we can end up in a world where we're developing organs that could last longer than a lifetime? And will these synthetic replacements be the key to our immortality, or is this just another sci-fi fantasy?
So interesting. I actually just watched a Netflix original movie that was somewhat similar to this, where Charlize Theron actually had the ability to regenerate. So if she was shot or got something chopped off or like poked, it would come back and fix herself like perfectly. So I think it's super interesting that it's actually like potentially a thing, especially in our future where we're here.
Yeah, I won't say immortality, but the potential for longevity is pretty exciting. You can imagine someone suffering a gunshot wound or a stab wound and then being able to repair that faster than we can today. Or someone who has to do dialysis, being able to just get a kidney that lasts longer than the 5 years that the dialysis usually goes for. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, I thought one thing that was interesting in that headline was, or that article, was around the 30 seconds to heal a wound. I don't know if they tested that or what type of wound that was, but that seemed amazing. It'd be interesting to see if that is actually a massive, like how much is spent on that, and how big a problem that is. But similar to what you were saying, Taylor, about Charlize Theron, I was then, when I was researching about this, I was reading that there's like a salamander that can also regrow lost body parts. So I was just like, kind of, they're doing a lot of research into kind of just other materials, elastin as well. But there's all these sort of animals that have figured out a way of just sequencing themselves, sequencing different body parts like ad hoc, which was kind of, I guess it's an extension of that, because this was just kind of like regenerating one part, the elastic part of an organ. But I know that there's work that's been done around general full-scale organs from scratch. I think they're saying like 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, actually, on one of the last episodes, we talked about the founder of Segway. I don't know if people know what happened to him, but he's actually on to like a way bigger and more interesting company now. I don't remember what it's called, but it's sponsored by the Department of Defense, and it's basically 3D printing not for organs, for body parts. So you can imagine soldiers coming back that are injured, limbs, thumbs, not thumbs, fingers, whatever. Just the ability to 3D print those. I think organs become more complex than just like a pinky. But I mean, there's an interesting future there along with this elastin material. David, you said, maybe not immortality, but what does it look like as we start to use these things to at least at minimum extend life? I mean, you mentioned with kidneys, we're already sort of doing this. Does this become the norm where all 4 of us are going to live to 150 with, designer kidneys and livers?
I like to think so, but I'm not sure. I think in America, the life, we're actually living shorter than we did like a couple decades ago. So I'm excited to see if we can lengthen that.
It's also interesting from like a bigger question perspective, like, should we even be able to become immortal? And like, what does that do? What are the implications of that? Also, if we have this technology, are we going to make sure that it's universal and everyone can get access to it? Or does that then create some kind of barriers to all different types of people?
Taylor, do you remember the movie was called that you watched?
I think it's called The Last Man, but it's one of their newest releases, so it's featured all over their homepage.
Okay. Well, we'll have to do a Future Friday screening. All right, we'll move on. Cartoonist, do you have something funny for us?
Yeah. 1 second.
Putting on the final touches.
Exactly. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
So this is a girl who is justifying her cheeseburger tattoo.
Awesome.
What else? It's doctor therapist guy.
I like that one.
And lastly, there's the salamander you were talking about.
It's called an axolotus.
Oh yeah, those are so super ugly.
Yeah, they're cool.
Ugly cool.
Nice. All right. Move on to the second headline of the day. So this one is Japanese convenience stores will use VR-controlled robots to stack shelves. So this is actually Family Mart, which is a very popular convenience store chain in Japan, for those of you who have been there. The convenience store culture is really interesting there. But basically, they're replacing some of their in-store assistants with robots in order to help stack shelves. These aren't autonomous robots, though. They're telerobots. So they'll actually have people on the other end with like headsets that are controlling the robots via virtual reality. And this actually in some ways allows the robots to carry out tasks more efficiently. I mean, there's a future where autonomous is probably better, but for today, it's just like more efficient to have someone just control it and do the stuff. The robots are being tested right now in select locations, but the idea is to have them installed by 20 stores by 2022, which sounds like a tiny number as I read it. Putting it out to you all, I mean, teleoperated robots aren't new. They've been around for a long time. Typically where they've been used are places like factories and labs, nuclear power plants, places where either precision is important or where it's a particularly unsafe environment, which makes total sense. I mean, the one that we can all think about is the bomb disposing robots, right? It makes way more sense to send a robot in that's controlled by a human than a human. Obviously with COVID, some new opportunities have popped up, but let me ask you all, is this an unnecessary precaution that's going to end up just causing more problems, or are robotic stock boys the way of the future?
I think my quick thought on this one was that actually I was a bit worried about, you've got people wanting to come back to work, let's say, to a convenience store, and this is going to allow, I wonder what the salary would be if you're just operating one of those robots versus like actually being in the store. And if there's a chance for the store to just be like, yeah, you're just like playing a VR game and like, this is your new job, like, and here's what you're paid. So I think there's a risk of, I'm just wondering like what would happen to jobs and wages like when these things happen.
I mean, I would play that as a game for free.
If I was paid the same, I would definitely do it.
for like an hour, and then it'd probably get boring, but it'd be fun.
True.
And then the point though, like once the consumer gets used to interacting with these robots in stores, and then the technology becomes good enough, they don't actually need the humans on the other side. What does that do to the job overall? Like, does it get completely displaced after it hits that tipping point?
Mm.
Yeah, I was pretty excited about the idea of someone from another country working for a store in a different country. I thought that's really cool. I didn't quite understand why it had to be in VR instead of just like a video, but it's a question I had actually.
Just for added fun.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the use of robotics is a common theme on the show. We talk about all the new ideas that we're seeing all the time. I mean, a super relevant one is there was Chinese hospitals early in COVID that were using robots to do things like take temperature. So, I mean, that makes total sense, right? You don't want to expose nurses and doctors, send a robot in. Curious what examples you all have seen, if any, that are interesting and make sense, and, extrapolating out to the future. Can we see these robots being more of a part of our daily lives, where it's not so novel, but it's just like, oh, there's like a robot stocking a shelf, cool. We just like casually pass it in the aisle.
Yeah, one of the cool use cases of true 5G is that there won't be very much latency between the video, live stream video. So an idea of like a top surgeon in one country performing surgery on another using a robot is super exciting. Right now we can't do that because there's even a little latency that could be bad for the patient.
I know that SpaceX actually of robots, like within their actual building of the rockets, and that they really do work like in tandem with humans, similar to this use case. So I can see it totally happening. And I also like that it's putting the humans out of danger, which is one of their use cases for it too.
Nice.
I mean, I know like bomb disposal robots, but those are like, I just, again, to David's point about the VR thing, like, I just wonder what that's adding. And I presume it's like, it's more interactive for the person that's operating it. And I was just, I mean, I don't know what layers and filters you could add to like a shelf to make it look fun. Like,
turn into a paperboy game. All right, we'll move on to the next game. So this one is worth 10 points, an opportunity for you all to put some points up on the board. This one is multiple choice. We've got a headline here that has a blank, and one of the options below is the correct answer. So this portable device turns blank into drinking water. Is it urine, seawater, or ethanol? Just write your answer down and then give me a thumbs up when you're ready, and we'll all show our answers to the screen. All right, what do you got? B, seawater, and A.
oh,
The correct answer is, in fact, seawater, which means 10 points for Taylor and 10 points for Dhruv. So this headline is about a company called Quench Sea, which is making a portable device that removes salt and minerals from seawater, creating fresh drinking water. This has previously been actually a very difficult process, desalination. There's some countries that have massive desalination plants that do this. This is cool because it's a portable device that can make up to 3 liters of water in an hour. You can imagine use cases where this is used for survival kits, but also just for people who have poor access to clean drinking water, or if you're like out in the wilderness and have poor access to clean drinking water. We'll move on to final headline of the day. So this smart mask can translate what you say into 8 different languages. Good one for Taylor. So what this is about is a Japanese company called Donut Robotics, which developed a face mask with what they call smart capabilities, including the ability to translate what the wearer is saying into 8 different languages. The mask does work like a normal mask that we're all wearing to protect from the spread of COVID, but also translates the wearer speech from Japanese into 8 different languages. This is where it sounds less smart. It works by connecting to a smartphone app via Bluetooth that translates the words into text messages. When I first read the headline, I thought it would like light up on the mask, like what you were saying, but it actually just like basically takes what you're saying and puts it into like a Google Translate type app. No offense to the company. What is cool about it is that the mask costs only $40 per mask, which is relatively inexpensive. They're in talks with Haneda Airport for guides and translators at the airport to use it. I mean, I think translation is a very interesting space, especially when you think about use cases like in airports, right? Like I've been lost in Tokyo airports trying to find where to go, building into a mask that someone's already wearing. It's like, okay, it's interesting. I mean, we've seen lots of interesting uses of masks, people coordinating their outfits as well. Let me ask you all, are these upgrades helpful, or are these just companies that are trying to capitalize on the current climate and solving problems that we don't actually have?
I'll jump in real quick. I think it's really interesting from the accessibility effect of people who tend to depend on reading lips. And now all of a sudden they don't get access to that because it's covered with a mask. So from that perspective, it's pretty cool. And I don't know, David actually has Duolingo in their portfolio also. So if he has any thoughts around it.
We do have Duolingo in our portfolio. I like your point about accessibility. I went into this topic thinking that no one would use this, so you kind of opened my eyes up to that use case. But yeah, it feels like the future. I don't know if it's the immediate future.
I mean, I would love to see something like when you're traveling where, and again, I also went into it thinking it was really not useful at all. But this it's getting closer to this idea of you can actually, I want to be able to like say something when I'm on holiday, and then it's like visually you represented, you know, in different speech, in different colors. I don't know what that would look like, but because, you know, getting it onto a form factor of a phone is just like, I don't know if you guys have done that when you're on Google Translate, you write something and then you show it to someone. It's not very, it's not great.
Well, Google had that interesting demo a couple of years ago when they were releasing their version of the AirPods, where they did like a live on stage instant translation. I mean, no one has seen it work since that demo.
Yeah.
Interesting discussion though for you, Taylor and David. I mean, when we get to that place where language isn't a barrier and it's just like someone speaking to me in Japanese automatically comes through my AirPods, am I going to want to learn a new language? Like, is it worth like the friction? Do I care anymore? Like, what happens to Toucan and Duolingo in that world?
Yeah, I mean, personally, like human communication is always going to be a fundamental need of ours. Like we can either put in the effort to learn it or not, but language is even more than communication. It's like culture, empathy for another person. Like you actually put effort in to learn this language yourself. Like that's amazing. I taught myself how to speak Portuguese, and when I went over to live and study in Portugal, like everyone I met was so impressed that I took the time to learn their own language. And so I don't think that special factor will ever really leave. But for everyone that doesn't want to put that time or effort into learning, like that's another amazing option to create those connection points.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that people are always going to want to learn new languages, but for the people that don't now, we're going to be able to build a lot of cool new projects, and people will be able to buy a lot of goods that might not be accessible to them because they don't understand the language. So that's exciting.
I think it's also like, for me, there's a cultural element as well. Like Japan is known for like, I mean, if you look at like, I think it's called hikikomori. It's like this culture where subculture where basically there's huge swathes of Japan that basically want to isolate. Been isolating for years. So I think there's an element of also like, where are these innovations coming from, and is that going to be replicable across the world? You know, is that what people want?
Yeah, I think there's definitely the cultural element when it comes to learning language, and there's something nice for sure about like learning Portuguese and going to Portugal and being able to use that in part of the experience. My understanding of the language market is that a large part of it is more professional use cases, like people learning the new language for work. And correct me if I'm wrong, Taylor and David. I wonder, how does that change as like instant translation and like masks, you know, whatever the future of masks are comes about? Does that shrink your market size? Does it shrink Duolingo's market size? What does that look like?
I think it almost adds on top of it. Like these are most likely people that wouldn't otherwise learn that language. And in addition to like work or professional use cases, which is one of the reasons why people learn English, like a lot of people learn from the other vertical, the other way, because of like romance or families, right? Like now that we're all connected by technology, like we have the opportunity to date anyone across the world. So that still requires like that, like one-to-one versus like with a mask and that auto translations.
Yeah, romance in Portuguese makes me think of that movie with that man who goes to Portugal to write a book.
Love Actually.
Love
yeah.
Actually, yeah. I was like, what is it called? Yeah, Love Actually, yes.
It's one of my favorite movies.
Is that what inspired you to learn Portuguese?
No, I just love the language and wanted to study there, so I got to it.
Nice. David, you were going to say something. I cut you off.
No, just to Taylor's point, I agree that this would only kind of broaden access to people and with learning languages. I know that when I first started traveling, I went to Spain mostly because I knew Spanish from school, right? But if I had some familiarity with Japanese and French, I would go to Japan or France just because I would be able to communicate there right away. So that's exciting.
That's so true, David. Like if I could communicate in Japanese after a trip, that actually might propel me to afterwards. Like this was so awesome. Now I like really want to dive deeper and learn it even more for my next trip back, or when I talk to my friends that I made over there.
That's been my experience. So yeah, I'd agree with that.
Nice.
Yeah. I just one final point I'd say is like the like a lot of the when you're learning a language initially, it's very basic things to get around, like, you know, I like this or that, or where's the taxi, or like, you know, where can I find whatever restaurant. But I think this type of stuff will allow us to actually enhance that, enhanced language, enhanced expression, enhanced descriptions of things that you're seeing.
We'll all be getting masks after this episode then.
Yeah, I don't know. I know I'm probably missing out on so many good movies and television shows and music just because I don't understand languages. So I'm excited for this future.
All right, we'll move on. Cartoonist, what do you have for us?
Let's see. I was just thinking about how people still don't really understand what each other want by language translations. What else? The untimeliness of this product.
That's a great point. I'd never even thought about that.
It's just so good. Nobody will get made fun of for their accent. And lastly,
Yeah, surveillance.
Nice. All right. We're going to end today with a final game. This one is worth 10 points. So opportunity for David to get on the scoreboard. This one is fill in the blank. This one is less about what the real headline is about and more about just coming up with something really funny just to end on a funny note. So there's a blank in the headline. This startup will pay you to remote control your blank. I'm going to give you all 30 seconds to just come up with something really funny and silly. No pressure. Just write it down and give me a thumbs up when you're ready. All right. Let's go one by one and show us what you got. This startup will pay you to remote control your Taylor? Dhruv. Taylor.
I put your Zoom mute button just because all of COVID has been, oh, you're on mute.
Nice. That's a good one. Dhruv, what do you got?
I had parrots. You can't see it. Yeah. Self-training AI for parents or dogs.
That's a pretty good one.
Wow, I don't think I got my 10 points. I put a dog.
Oh.
Nice. My favorite is probably parents just because it's like a bit outrageous and funny. So 10 points to you, Dhruv, which gives you a total of 20 points and makes you our winner for today. The correct answer
Amazing.
was, in fact, fridge. Yeah, so this is about a startup called Ohm Connect, which is a smart grid startup trying to help balance the power supply and demand. And basically, they tie into a bunch of home devices like your fridge and a utility like PG&E in California. If they're like overloaded for a part of the day, will basically be able to like botnet control a bunch of different devices across the state and not like turn them off, but just maybe reduce the load. So yeah, that's what that headline was about. So for everyone watching, here's where you can find all of our guests today one last time. Thank you everyone for joining. This was so much fun. And just one more reminder, all the headlines we talked about today came from This Week in Creative Technology, bit.ly/join Future Fridays. Thanks so much, everyone. This was such a great episode.
Thank you.